I never imagined Thanksgiving would become the day my entire identity unraveled. The scent of roasted turkey and cinnamon-spiced yams filled the living room, clinging to the worn walls of my parents' house in Portland. Everything looked the same. The earthy brown tablecloth, the ceramic pumpkin centerpiece, the mismatched chairs dragged from the basement to fit our extended family. Yet something felt different this year. Not in the decorations, but in the air. Thicker, heavier, like a storm pretending to be still. Aunt June's pumpkin pie sat untouched near the end of the table, her red lipstick smudged on the wine glass she'd brought from home like she always did. Brian, my cousin, was already 2 jokes too loud, trying to fill the silence with laughter no one quite shared. I stayed quiet, as I always did, cutting mashed potatoes into bite-sized pieces for little Ellie, Samantha and Daniel's daughter, who was perched beside me in her glittery Thanksgiving dress. No one asked how work was going. No one noticed the fatigue I wore like a second skin. I had learned to stop expecting warmth where there had only ever been tolerance. That's when Samantha stood up. Her heels clicked on the hardwood as she raised her glass with a smile so precise, so rehearsed, it felt like watching a commercial. Her golden curls were perfectly shaped, her nails painted the color of dried blood, her expression frozen somewhere between sweet and smug. I glanced around. Every fork paused mid-air. The entire room seemed to inhale at once. "I think it's time we all got real with each other," she began, voice smooth, calculated. "Last week, we took a vote." "A vote?" Daniel shifted uncomfortably in his seat, and my father cleared his throat. My mother leaned forward, anticipation flickering in her eyes. Then Samantha turned to me, her words slicing clean through the stillness. "Layla, we've decided. You're no longer part of this family." For a moment I thought I misheard her, that somehow I misunderstood the words. But then the applause began. Real, echoing applause. Aunt June gave a slow whistle. Brian lifted his glass in a mock toast. And the worst? My mother laughed. An actual laugh, like it was the most delightful thing she'd heard all evening. Looked at my father. He didn't meet my eyes. Just gave a slight disapproving shake of his head. "Maybe this is for the best," he murmured. The turkey on my plate was still steaming, but I was cold, bone-deep cold. Not from grief. Not even shock. It was rage, controlled, focused, familiar. I had always known I didn't fit. I just never expected they'd make it official. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't ask why. Instead, I sat there, silent, letting the moment stretch, letting them taste the silence they'd forced down my throat for years. Then, slowly, I pushed my chair back. The legs scraped. Against the hardwood floor, a small sound, but it made everyone flinch. "You actually planned this?" My voice didn't shake. It was steady, almost too calm. Samantha didn't flinch. She smiled. No, smirked. Like she'd just won a game no one told me I was playing. "You've always been a thorn in everyone's side," she said matter-of-factly. "Cold, distant, acting like you're better than us." I looked at her, then scanned the faces around the table, all the people I had once bent over backward to help. None of them met my gaze. They didn't have to. Their silence said enough. Without a word, I bent down and picked up my purse. Then I pulled out a thick cream-colored folder, the kind of folder you keep locked away until it's needed, not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. I placed it on the table. It landed softly, but with a finality that echoed louder than any applause. Samantha's brow twitched. "What's this?" "Why don't you take a look?" I said, folding my arms, voice still steady. She reached for the folder, flipped open the first page, and that's when it happened. The mask cracked. Her smile disappeared like breath on glass. Her face paled, and her hand began to tremble. The room shifted. The confidence she wore like perfume evaporated as she turned to the second page. Then she shrieked. A sharp, panicked sound that shattered the room's smugness like a dropped plate. Ellie burst into tears beside me, and Aunt June rushed to scoop her up. Daniel reached over and grabbed the folder from Samantha's hands. He read one page, then another. His jaw tightened. Is this real?" he asked, not looking at anyone but me. I nodded. Every number, every screenshot, every lie. The room, once filled with clinking glasses and laughter, was now a battlefield of silence. Papers fluttered to the floor from Samantha's shaking hands. My mother stared, lips parted but speechless for once. My father remained still, stone-faced, unmoving, but I saw the faintest twitch in his hand resting on the table. They had voted me out, but they hadn't expected I'd walk away with more than just my dignity. They didn't know I had receipts. Literal ones. How did you get all of this?" Samantha's voice cracked as she stared down at the damning pages now splayed across the table like broken glass. I stepped forward, keeping my gaze level. Because I knew one day, one of you would do something you couldn't take back. Daniel slowly bent down, picking up a crumpled page from the floor. His eyes scanned it for a long moment, his knuckles whitening as he gripped the edge. "This shows a transfer, $2,800, from your account to Samantha's, just days after she told me I'd lost my job and we were behind on rent." Samantha opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Just a thin gasp, the sound of someone caught mid-lie without an exit. Daniel's voice dropped lower, but sharper. "And this?" He held up another printout, his hand shaking. 3 nights at the Grand Hill Hotel, charged to my card, booked under the name Heather Jameson. I didn't even blink. That's the alias she used. There's a photo in the folder. Matching robes, same balcony view. It's all there. My mother suddenly stood, trying to interrupt. "Layla, enough. This isn't the time." I held up a hand. "I'm not done." From my purse, I pulled out another folder. Thinner, more organized, and slid it toward my father. "This one's for you." He hesitated, then opened it. A spreadsheet, neat and clinical. Dates, items, totals. I spoke calmly as he read. "A full breakdown of everything I covered after your fall last year. Every medical bill, every pharmacy run, receipts included." His face didn't change, but I saw the tremor in his fingers. He couldn't deny it. It was all there, line by line. Then I turned to my mother. "And here," I said, pulling out a highlighted bank record, "is a transfer from March 14th, $2,200. You said it was for credit card debt." My mother's face twisted. That money was given out of love. We're family. What kind of love votes someone out of the family then laughs while doing it? My voice was sharper now, but not shouting. I didn't need volume to make. It hurt. I scanned the table. None of you ever apologized. None of you ever offered to pay anything back. Because to you, I was never your daughter, your cousin, your sister. I was just the bank. Brian cleared his throat weakly. "Layla, maybe we went too far. We didn't know it was this serious." "You clapped," I snapped, eyes locked on his. "You clapped when I was exiled from the family table. Don't pretend remorse now." And then I pulled out my phone. I tapped the screen. Hit play. Samantha's voice echoed through the speaker. "She always acts so righteous. Cut the money and watch her fall apart. No one loves her. No one misses her." Followed by my mother's laughter. Clear, cruel. I placed the phone on the table like a final stone on a grave. "You were spying on me?" Samantha hissed. "No," I said quietly. "You accidentally sent the recording to Jessica. She forwarded it to me, and I kept it. Like I always do. Samantha's face contorted, her voice barely more than a hiss. You're scary, Layla. Who hoards all this stuff like a paranoid freak? I stepped closer, not to intimidate, but to make sure every word landed. Someone who's been betrayed too many times learns to remember. And to prepare. Daniel was still holding the folder, flipping slowly through the final pages. Then he stopped. His eyes lingered on one sheet, a financial summary I had compiled with excruciating precision. I knew which page it was before he said a word. $6,400, he whispered. Over 6 years? I nodded. That's the total I gave to every person at this table, every emergency, every quiet favor, and that's not counting the emotional toll. He looked up at me, something dawning behind his eyes. You kept all of this because you knew this day might come. No, I said softly. I hoped it wouldn't. I prayed I was wrong about all of you. But when people you love treat you like a transaction, you start keeping track. Not out of malice, but out of survival. I reached for the folder still in his hands and flipped to the page I had marked in red. This line, I said, pointing. $9,000. That was for you and Samantha to start that nail salon, the one that shut down after 4 months. Daniel's mouth parted slightly, stunned. $5,600 for a new car for my dad. $3,200 to cover Mom's hacked credit card, except she was actually at a resort in Tahoe that same weekend, posting relaxation vibes only on Facebook. My mother bristled, but she didn't speak. Not yet. $11,400 in medical bills for Ellie, I continued, because you said your insurance had lapsed. Turns out, Daniel, you just forgot to pay the premium. Daniel looked down. Samantha looked away. And then I turned the page. A screenshot. A message Samantha had sent to Jessica, our cousin. The caption read, Layla's basically a walking ATM. No kids, no husband, no purpose except making money to prove she's not a failure. The silence was no longer defensive. It was exposed. I locked eyes with Samantha. You sent that to someone who borrowed $2,000 from me for tuition. She felt guilty. She forwarded it. My voice didn't crack. Not anymore. I looked at my father. Remember last April when you called crying, saying Mom needed $2,500 urgently for heart tests? You said she was in pain, that it was serious. He nodded faintly. I pulled out another document. That same weekend, she was checked into the Fairmont Sonoma for a 3-night spa retreat, paid with the same card I'd wired funds to. My mother's face flushed deep red. I was under stress, she snapped. I needed peace. And I needed dignity, I said. But I never seemed to deserve it here. Then I flipped to the very last page. A table. Simple. Brutal. Labeled. Date. Recipient. Amount. Reason? Repaid? Every entry in the repaid column read one word. No. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stood there. Calm. Unshaken. I was the one keeping this house burning while the rest of you added weight, judgment, and gas to the fire. Samantha scoffed, arms crossed tightly across her chest. So what? You kept all this to get revenge? I turned to her, meeting her glare without blinking. No, I kept it because I held on to hope. That maybe one day, someone, anyone, would realize how much I'd done. That maybe love wasn't just something that showed up when I was paying the bill. My voice stayed calm, but the weight behind it pressed into the room like a slow-building storm. I looked around the table, taking in the silence. But today, when you stood up and proudly announced that I was voted out of the family, I realized that hope is gone, so I'm making a decision of my own. I reached into my bag once more and pulled out a large envelope. Cream-colored, unlabeled, except for one small handwritten line in the corner. The day has come. I walked back to the table and placed it dead center. Margaret, my mother, leaned forward, her brows tightening. "Layla, what is that?" Daniel picked it up first. He opened it, slowly pulling out the stack of legal documents. His eyes scanned the top page, and within seconds he froze. You already signed everything?" I nodded. "Every document. Every notarization. Done." "What kind of documents?" Brian asked cautiously. "Revocations," I replied, turning toward the group. "Of power of attorney, emergency contact status, financial co-signing authority. I've removed myself from every single role I once held in this family." I turned to my mother. "I'm no longer listed on your medical forms. If you're admitted to the hospital, they won't call me." My father finally looked up. "You can't just cut ties like that." I met his eyes that had watched so many things without ever once stepping in. "I didn't. You all did. You voted." Brian stood slowly, uncertain. "Layla, you're going too far. This isn't what we meant." I gave him a faint smile. "I'm not going too far. I'm finally going just far enough." Then I turned to Charles, my father. "You once told me I was like a machine, that I worked without feeling. Did you ever stop to wonder why?" He didn't answer, just stared at his glass of water, now half full and room temperature. "It's because you taught me," I continued, "that the moment I paused, the moment I needed anything, no one would be there." Margaret stood abruptly, panic creeping into her voice. "You're my daughter. No matter what happens, family is family." I shook my head slowly. "No, Mom. Family doesn't exile you from the dinner table and laugh while doing it. Family doesn't treat you like a loan officer." Across the table, Samantha stood and pointed. "You act like you're better than us, controlling everything. You like having the power, don't you?" I looked at her, steady and quiet. "Wrong. I like having peace." Daniel was the one to break the silence this time. His voice was quiet, almost like he was speaking to himself more than the room. "So, from now on, you're completely out. No contact, no ties. Nothing?" I turned to him and nodded. "Officially, on paper and in my heart." No one tried to stop me. Not this time. I reached for my coat, sliding it over my shoulders slowly, as if shrugging off years of silent expectations. I looked around one last time, not with anger, but with clarity. And then, just as I reached for the doorknob, Daniel's voice came, again, this time louder, more urgent. "Layla, wait." I paused, my back still facing them. "I need to know everything in that folder. Is it all true?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I slowly turned, walked back toward the table, and gently took the folder from where he'd left it. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't rise. I simply laid it open, page by page, like unfolding a crime scene in broad daylight. "Let me walk you through it." The room fell completely silent. No one dared move. Even Samantha, who usually had a retort locked and loaded, stood frozen, arms wrapped tightly around herself as if she were the one exposed now. I flipped to the financial summary. The final total, $81,200 over the past 5 years. That includes the $9,000 for the failed nail salon, $5,600 for Dad's car, $3,200 for Mom's credit card fraud, and $11,400 in Ellie's medical bills. I glanced at Daniel. "Those insurance premiums weren't paused. You just forgot to pay them." His face turned red. His hands clenched on the edge of the table. Then I turned the page again. "Brian, $1,800 for the accounting course you failed twice. And here, I tapped a screenshot of a text from Samantha to cousin Jessica, highlighted in yellow. She wrote this after Thanksgiving 2 years ago. Layla has no kids, no husband, no purpose, just a wallet with legs. The words floated in the air, like smoke, thick and bitter. Samantha's expression twisted, but she said nothing. I turned to my father. Remember last April, when you called begging for $2,500 for Mom's urgent heart testing? He nodded slowly. I laid down another document. She was checked into a wellness spa the next morning. Fairmont, Sonoma. Champagne welcome, 3-night stay, hot stone therapy. Margaret jumped to her feet. I needed that. I was under pressure. And I needed peace, I said, voice still level. But you didn't seem to think that mattered. Then I pulled out the final sheet, my master log. A spreadsheet with columns labeled amount, recipient, reason, repayment status. The last column was filled with one word: no. No one offered to return $1. No one even asked if I needed help. They had only needed me when it was convenient. And the moment I stopped giving, I became disposable. I looked at them all. You want to talk about power? This, I tapped the folder, isn't about control. It's about truth. And truth doesn't come with a thank you note. It comes with silence, just like the kind you gave me for years. Daniel, was silent, staring at the folder as if it were a mirror reflecting a version of his life he had refused to see. Slowly, almost reluctantly, he flipped one more page. His brow furrowed as he paused on a folded corner. He smoothed it out, eyes scanning the text, and then his lips parted. Vanessa, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Who is Heather Jameson? The question sliced through the silence like a blade. Samantha, now visibly rattled, froze. Her eyes darted between Joel, me, and then our mother, as if searching for a lifeline that no longer existed. Why is her name on the hotel bill? He asked again, louder this time. His knuckles turned white as he gripped the paper. 3 nights at the Emerald Coast Hotel. Champagne, a couple's spa package, a double room. I told you. It was a wellness trip, Samantha said quickly, voice shaky. Heather's just an old classmate. Joel didn't blink. I'm not stupid. I stepped forward again, pulling another sheet from my coat pocket. This is a screenshot of Heather's Instagram story, taken during those 3 days. The room in the background, identical to the hotel's promotional photos. Same view, same bedding, same white robes. I reached for my phone. And this? I swiped once and held up the screen. A message Samantha sent Heather, pulled from a shared iCloud account she forgot to disconnect. Joel took the phone with trembling hands. I watched as his eyes scanned the message, and I knew exactly when he reached the sentence I had highlighted, in red. Joel won't find out. He's too busy running the shop. You're the one I want next to me. His breath caught in his throat. He handed the phone back like it burned. You said I was emotionally unavailable, he said, not looking at Samantha. You said I didn't understand your needs. And all that time, this is what you were doing behind my back? Samantha didn't speak. Her lips parted, then closed again. Joel stood up so suddenly the chair screeched across the floor. He turned to me. You kept this not just for yourself. You were protecting me too. I nodded. Even after everything, I couldn't watch you stay blind. Margaret, our mother, rushed to intervene, her voice trembling. This shouldn't have come out at dinner. I looked at her, calm, but laughing while I was voted out in front of everyone was appropriate. Her face flushed, her mouth opening to defend, but I cut her off. All these years, I said nothing. I paid, I supported, I tolerated. And now, just this once, I speak, and suddenly I'm the problem. My father remained silent. He always had. Even now, when his daughter was being ripped apart in public, he stayed seated like stone. Joel slowly sank back into his chair, hands cradling his head. "I don't know who I can trust anymore," he muttered. I stepped closer, voice softening for the first time. "Then start with yourself." That's what I had to do. The room was still, but it wasn't the same silence as before. This time it felt heavier, like the truth had finally landed and none of them knew what to do with it. Then Samantha turned to me, her voice cracking like thin ice. "You just wanted to destroy this family, didn't you? You're happy to see us fall apart." I shook my head, slowly, deliberately. "No, I'm just tired of being the one expected to fix everything while you all keep breaking it." I reached for my bag again and slung it over my shoulder, but just as I stepped toward the door, Joel's voice rose behind me. "Samantha, what about the apartment in Austin?" I didn't need to stay to hear the answer. I already knew. That second apartment, listed under a fake LLC, partially funded with his credit card. I had slipped the final document into the folder just before arriving. I walked toward the front door again, but this time I paused. Not out of doubt, but because I had one last thread to cut. I opened my bag and pulled out a large, cream-colored envelope. No name, no return address. Just a handwritten note in the corner that read, "The day has come." I walked back to the table and placed it gently at the center. "This," I said quietly, "is the last thing you'll ever need from me." My mother leaned forward, wary. "Layla, what is this?" Joel opened the envelope. I watched as his eyes widened. He flipped through the documents quickly, then looked at me, stunned. "You revoked everything?" I nodded. Financial power of attorney, emergency contact, healthcare proxy, cosigner status, gone. I turned to my mother. "From now on, if something happens to you or Dad, the hospital won't call me. The bank won't call me. No one will. Because I'm not legally or emotionally tied to this house anymore." She jumped to her feet. "You can't do that. That's your responsibility as family." "No," I replied. "It used to be. Back when I thought I was still part of this family. But then you voted." Brian looked panicked now. "Layla, please. You're overreacting. We were just trying to make things clear." I cut in. "Well, now they are." Then I turned to my father. "You always said I worked like a machine, that I was too focused, too cold. But did you ever wonder why? It's because you taught me that showing emotion, pausing, needing something meant weakness. And weakness meant no one would catch me." He didn't look up, just stared at the now cold water in his glass like it could explain everything he never said. Margaret's voice cracked. "You're still my daughter." I met her gaze, calm and resolute. "And you're the woman who applauded when I was erased from my own family." I turned, once again walking toward the door. No one moved to stop me this time. Not a word. Not a plea. Just the quiet sound of pages turning as Joel opened another folded corner and softly asked the last question they were all too afraid to say aloud. "Vanessa, what about the vacation home in Tahoe?" I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I didn't slam the door. I didn't say goodbye. I simply stepped out into the cold Portland air, letting it sting my cheeks like a final baptism. For the first time in years, I felt light. Like I wasn't dragging the weight of a dozen unspoken expectations behind me. The house I had once called home stood quiet behind me, lights glowing in the windows like hollow eyes. I didn't turn around. I walked across the damp lawn, my boots sinking slightly into the earth after the rain. Even the trees lining the porch seemed to shiver, like they too had witnessed something long overdue. I got into my car, closed the door, and let the silence settle. And I didn't cry. 2 days passed. Then my phone started buzzing. The first message was from my mother. "You can walk away, but you'll always be my daughter. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. We can fix this if you just open your heart again." I didn't reply. I didn't delete it either. I left it there as proof of the pattern I knew all too well. When they need something, I become precious again. That afternoon, an unknown number called. I let it go to voicemail. Later, curiosity got the better of me. "Layla, this is Michael Grant, Daniel's attorney. He asked me to inform you that you may be a primary witness if his divorce proceeds to court. He filed this morning, submitted the full folder you left behind." I didn't respond, just sat in my apartment, staring at the old photo of Ellie and me on a hiking trail from 3 years ago. That weekend, Samantha had claimed she was at a women's wellness retreat. I had taken Ellie instead. She smiled the whole ride back, her little fingers sticky from the trail mix I packed in a paper bag. Now I wondered, had she ever really been at a spa? Or was that just another story I accepted without question? The next day, a message from Brian appeared. "Layla, I didn't realize it was that bad. I'm sorry for not speaking up. You were always the one holding everything together." I paused, but beneath the apology was the real reason. "Also, our cousin just lost his job. Any chance you could help cover his rent for a few months?" I locked my screen. I didn't feel angry, just tired. The silence that used to terrify me now felt like armor. It didn't isolate me. It protected me. A few days later, Natalie emailed me. Her tone was oddly formal, like someone writing to a stranger. "Regardless of what happened, I hope you remember others are affected too. Joel left. Ellie's confused and asks for you. Mom cries constantly. I'm not asking for anything, just hoping you'll help reassure the family. They won't survive if you keep ignoring them." And then, a small postscript. "P.S. Moms, having trouble with the mortgage. The bank needs a co-signer to avoid foreclosure." I closed the email. I didn't reread it, because I'd learned something critical in the last few days. A real apology never comes with a request. A week later, I received a voicemail from my father. I never saved his number, but that dry, gravelly voice was unmistakable. "Layla, you've gone too far. Your mother can't sleep. Samantha's in a panic. You should come back. Talk like an adult. Don't let a small thing turn you into a stranger." A small thing. $78,000. Years of silent sacrifice. Being laughed at and applauded out of my own family. Betrayed, manipulated, erased, and they still called. It a small thing. I didn't reply. I didn't delete it either. I kept everything, because they always find a way to convince themselves that I was wrong, just for walking away. A few days later, a handwritten letter showed up in my mailbox. No return address, but I recognized my mother's cursive instantly. Blue ink, 3 pages. Page 1 was filled with apologies. "I never meant to hurt you." Page 2 was updates. "Your father's back is acting up again. Samantha's alone. Ellie keeps asking where you are." And page 3 was the offer. "If you help us cover the mortgage, we'll transfer the house title into your name. That way, you'll know. Your money isn't being wasted." I read it once. Then I stood, walked to the trash bin, and dropped it in without blinking. It finally hit me. They didn't want me back. They wanted the old version of me, the one who smiled on cue, who wired money at midnight, who said yes before asking why. But she's gone. She left quietly one Monday morning when the sky was pale and cold, sunlight bleeding through the windows of my new apartment. No one saw her off. No one said goodbye. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt free. The new city is about 3 hours from Portland, a small lakeside town in Washington. I didn't pick it for the view. I picked it because no one here knows me. No one calls me Layla, just when bills are due. No one sends cryptic texts followed by bank account details. The apartment is smaller, but warm. Exposed wooden beams, big windows that catch the morning light, and a kitchen where I make my own coffee instead of rushing out to buy one while juggling everyone else's fires. I resigned from my old executive finance job. 6 figures, endless expectations, and no peace. I now work part-time for a nonprofit that helps single women build financial independence. Real people, real stories, no quotas, no strings. And me? I'm learning to live without apology. I started therapy, not because I broke, but because I wanted to understand why I kept giving until I disappeared. Dr. Brooks has soft eyes. The first time I sat across from her, I said, "I used to think if I stopped helping, I'd stop mattering." She nodded. And for the first time, I believed someone heard me. I jog every morning. I bake with recipes I used to bookmark and ignore. I light candles because I like the scent, not to mask something I'm trying to escape. One Saturday, I ran into Ava, an old college friend. She'd seen my name in an anonymous essay that had gone viral. We had tea, and I laughed more in 1 hour than I had in years. When we left the cafe, she looked at me and smiled. "You're still kind, Layla, but now you know who deserves that kindness." That night, I changed my emergency contact form. No more Mom, no more Samantha. I listed Ava instead, not because she needs anything from me, but because I know she'd show up if I ever needed someone. And that, I think, is what family should be.